possible. So if you have any questions, go ahead in the chat along the way, ask questions. We'll save time at the end of every presentation to make sure that we ask those questions. You can use the chat, or afterwards you can get on video and ask the questions through the video. That would be great as well, so that we can make this as interactive as possible. So first up, we have Eric and Marcus, who are going to chat from Pendo, are going to highlight our guide experiments. Sherry from Restaurant Magic is going to be talking about her onboarding and guide experience, along with Kaylee at Strong Mind. So we have really great presentations for you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing so that Eric and Marcus can take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. And nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Marcus. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Pendo. And I'm going to share my screen. If anybody did anybody go to the webinar called When In-App Guides Go Wrong and What to Do About It? All right, if you did, this will be a little bit of a refresh from that. So, we can always go a little bit deeper into the content. We're going to run you through kind of what we presented then and just share how we're thinking about guides right now. So I think probably everybody knows this if you're here, but the expectations for software today are very high. Users have sort of been trained by Netflix and Peloton and the Dunkin' app. That's me. That's my Dunkin' app. That's a great user experience. So expect a personalized, always improving, really, really great experience from their products, from their software. But in a lot of ways, business software is lagging behind. We expect this Instagram-like experience, but what we get are gray bars and hard to use software. There's this gap. What we expect is software that will solve our needs, that will deliver quick answers, that's easy to learn, that you can use on any device. And a lot of the times what we get from software is one size fits all. We get stuck on hold, we get complicated and difficult, we get desktop only. The companies that do this really well, that bridge this gap really, really well, they're product-led, and they really do these 5 things great. Their onboarding is amazing. They're super data-driven and data-informed. Adoption of their products is off the chart. They're really tuned into users. They execute great in-app support and growth. But doing those things are very, very hard. As you probably know, as we know, it's not easy stuff by any means. A lot of times delivering great onboarding, it's cut by scope and engineering. Using data to make better decisions sometimes isn't worth the analysis that it takes to do it. Driving adoption of your app it's a challenge to get users to take new behaviors and to change old behaviors. Collecting user feedback can be a challenge. Growth and support can be a challenge. These are problems we care deeply about at Pendo, which you probably do too, which are why we have all of these amazing tools. And one of the tools we have in App Guides, right, is really aimed at product adoption and onboarding. And it's a tool that should help teams be able to create a better product experience, right? To be able to improve that product experience to help bridge that experience gap. But what we've seen and what we've noticed is that guides in the wrong hands can be really problematic. When guides just become like a Band-Aid for bigger issues and they stay up too long, we've seen them become an irritant to users. And it's troubling, right? Like, we love guides. Washi, especially here, he loves guides. He'd probably get a guide tattoo if his wife would let him. But we care about them, is my point, and we want them to be great. We want to help make them great. And so a lot of what we're thinking about is like how to do that to help people move away from implementing guides that become annoying. Usually the problem there is that the guides are deployed based on instinct and gut feel and a lack of data. And they're not being used in a way where it's easy to show the impact. The other side of this, doing this well, would be creating guides that are based on data, and that the guides are a stepping stone. You actually need the guides. So this is the thinking behind guide experiments. And guide experiments is a new way to measure, test, and prove the impact of your guides. It's really 3 pieces. The first is conversions. And conversions is available to anybody who has Pendo. So you can set a conversion for your guides, which is essentially a goal for the guide. And you can say, this guide that I created I'm trying to make it, the end, it's conversion tracking. I want people to take this action. And you can measure that now with guides. So hopefully it's a step towards making guides more strategic. You can also set up experiments and guides, which creates a control group of users who don't see the guide. So then you can evaluate the behavior between the group that saw the guide and the group that didn't see the guide. And there's a really nice results dashboard, which I love, which I think is very cool because it shows the impact of all of your guides in a glance, but it also kind of shows the impact of your work too. You know, when talking to beta users, Amber at Security Scorecard, she liked it because, you know, it's like she has a theory or an ideas that she wants to put into effect with guides, and then she does it, and now she can report on it really easy to her boss and to her team. So yes, that is guides, and I will turn it over to Eric to show you the product if you haven't tried it out already.
Cool. All right. So I'll show you where in the UI you'll be able to configure these settings, but really just want to underscore Marcus's talk around how, like, here at Pendo, we're trying to help improve society's experiences with software, right? And as a product manager for the tool that allows you to do that directly in the application, and really democratizes the ability to do that, right? A lot of people can go and create guides. They don't necessarily have to know code to be able to use this. With that comes like all of the thought and intentionality that would normally go into developing a part of a product, right? So we're really investing heavily in trying to help our customers build the right guides and get in the right mindset behind why they're putting these guides in the application, right? And so that's really what these new features allow and promote, right, within the application. So here's an example demo guide that we have on our demo sales site. It's specifically a guide that teaches users how to add notes to a certain field in a CRM, right? So normally, like when we're launching this new notes field feature, we're going to want to raise awareness about it. We're going to want to notify our customers about it. But we need to make sure that we're doing that the right way, right? Maybe it might be an email digest in an email blast. Maybe it might also be an in-app guide. But here you now have the tools to actually test whether or not this is the right way to do it. So there's two new cards for those of you who have access to experiments. Everyone who does not have access to experiments, it does come with some of the more enterprise plans here at Pendo, but everyone does have the conversion card. And the reason why we made this available to everybody is to have the conversations around why this guide is going into the application, right? It allows you to define probably shouldn't do that to an active guide. So we'll go to a brand new guide here. And it allows you to say viewing a page, clicking a feature, or triggering a track event is what this guide exists for, right? This guide exists to let people know, in this case, this guide exists to let people know how to add notes. So when we're setting up a conversion, what we want to do is select the kind of last step of that workflow. So in this case, it would be clicking on the submit button to submit a new note. I can select from my existing features and I can save. And that will then start calculating your conversion rate. So of the people who have seen this guide, how many actually do the thing? So this one has a really high conversion rate in this case. It's a very useful guide, right? 94% of people who saw the guide end up doing the thing at some point. Now, experiments takes you a step further, allows you to take it a step further, which is compare users who don't see the guide and how they use the submit button and the notes feature to those who do see the guide, right? So this is really to help you compare and contrast the impact that the guide specifically has on your user behavior. When you publish these guides that have experiments attached to them, this is the results dashboard that Marcus was referencing. So here I'm able to get a very clear picture of how the two different groups performed, right? The people who did not see the guide, the control group in this case, and the people who did see the guide. So when I look at this results dashboard for this particular guide, there isn't that much of a difference, honestly, in user behavior between the users who saw the guide and the users who did not see the guide. Right? There was really only like a 9% increase or 9% difference between the two. So to me, this tells me that like in this case, a guide probably is not necessarily the right thing to do or doesn't have that big of an effect that we would hope on actually impacting and changing the user behavior, right? If we saw this control group really, really low, like maybe there's a 10% conversion rate or something like that, then yes, 10 times out of 10, a guide in this scenario would be the right thing to do, right? So these dashboards just give you the data to be able to justify your decisions and your team's decisions on how you're best using guides and your guide strategy in general at the company that you're working at. So definitely check out and reach out to your Pendo team here to learn more about experiments. If you haven't already, there's also a really helpful help article in the Help Center. But definitely, if you have not already, start using the conversion functionality. At the very least, it starts great conversations amongst the stakeholders as to whether or not a guide is the right thing to do. So thank you all for listening.
Have people been using conversions or experiments? If you have, let us know, or let us know if you have any thoughts. It's great to hear, if people have been putting it to use. I think, yeah, conversions seem like easy to get started, and hopefully turning them on, at the very least, sparks conversation, like Washi says, and then hopefully helps you a lot measure the impact of those guides too.
Yeah, Greg mentioned that it's kind of confusing that the conversion calculation or the metrics there is not on the metrics tab. Right now, that is definitely a valid concern and valid thing to call out. We do want to put the conversion calculation everywhere else in the application, on the guide metrics page, on the guide list or guide management page, to be able to really get the most use out of that. So you will see more of those improvements happen over the next several quarters.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions for Eric or Marcus on guide experiments? All right, we are going to let, they're going to stay on for a little bit longer. So if anyone has questions, feel free to use the chat to ask them. But well, let's go ahead and have Sherry share your screen for your presentation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing good. So I'm very excited to show you guys how we use Pendo currently. We are newbies. I will tell you that. We have executed Pendo to a small community in July, and tomorrow we're going to be going to our whole company. So this experience that we have that I'm going to be sharing with you was a demo that we had to do, monitor the demo, monitor the group that we had, and then what our aches and pains were. So, we're excited, or I'm excited to share this with you, and what our thought process were to develop guides and to go through what we went through. Eric, great information. So I'm definitely going to use the experiment and stuff like that. So thank you for teaching us that information. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfecto. All right, so I am actually going to turn my video off so we can just pay attention to what's going on, and we will go on. All right, so our goal was to have 37 guides done in 30 days. And so when we think about 37 guides, our company has step-by-step quick references. And so one of the things that we wanted to use Pendo for was to take 37 quick references that had 14 steps, 11 steps, condense them, and then make them into guides. So our users were able to go through a walkthrough and be able to help themselves when they have questions. Okay, so what do I want to talk about? I'm going to probably, for most of you, if you're, have your experience with Pendo, you probably know the stages of Pendo, but this is one thing that we wanted to put in our mindset where what are the stages of Pendo? Also have a plan, understand who our audience is and get that through, work as a team. And then my favorite is execute and pray. So pray that everything works well and that we're all working together. Okay. So the first thing that I just wanted to introduce about is that, yes, I do work for PAR, Restaurant Magic merged with PAR Tech. The division that I'm working with is Data Central, and Data Central provides innovative, easy to use back office solutions that empower operators to run their business more effectively. So it is a portal-based or web-based. It optimizes labor, decreases food costs, and helps increase customer service, meaning that we would like to get our customer or our managers out on the floor quicker. And so by using our software, this is what we can do to help. So why did we use Pendo? Well, basically we were interested in providing self-help service for our clients, as well as analyze our clients using our software and how they use our guides. So we did have some challenges. First, like I said, we are new to Pendo. So understanding Pendo and getting through the guides and doing our things, we learned a lot and we're still learning. Our system has two ways for our clients to access a function. So they can either go through activities or to-dos. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure was we wanted to make it where it's universal. How do we make this universal to where they don't have to click on an activity or to-do to get to our guides? It's just one click and they're there. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other part was dumping these guides to a major client in 30 days. So I pressed my breathe button because I was like, okay, let's take a deep breath and do this. So that's why my little breathe button is right there. So understanding the stages of Pendo. So, this is things that our Pendo person taught us. And so just pass the knowledge along. If you know it, great. If you don't, here to just pass it with you. First thing was always have your naming convention. So we believe that having a naming convention for all of our activities and color coding them makes life a heck of a lot easier, especially when you're building guides out. So you can actually see where your product area is and where the coloring comes in. So it makes it quicker. Like if we have something as a purchase management, we know that's in reds, labor and scheduling's in blue, anything in reporting's in purple. So for some people, color makes life a little bit easier. For other folks, it's reading it and knowing exactly where we are in the activities also helps. So this was always the first thing that we did was naming our pages. The next thing that we did, well, that's page tagging and feature tagging. So once again, understanding, how does this really affect us currently? If we don't have any guides, what does this mean for us? So with page tagging, it's just taking the pages and then creating the tag itself. So as you can see here, we just call this one activity count template. By just doing this simple page tag, we started seeing the interaction of what visitors were there, how many counts were they, how many times was this page viewed, and seeing the time frame. So it started bringing some things to life for us. They were like, hey, wow, that's kind of cool. The next thing that we did was we went into feature tagging. So we have buttons and we want to make sure that clients are clicking on the right buttons. So this one was, we want to see how many people were clicking this button with add a new location. And once again, we can see that through through Pendo by just selecting this information, making sure that it's onto this page itself, and then seeing what the results are. So we were getting preliminary information, which is really helpful for us. Stages of Pendo, next thing that we were talking about is segmentation. So we have different areas in our company, or different ports as we like to call it, when we do new things or new functions. So by understanding that this area or these people have this port, they're going to get this information on this day. Certain people are going to get information on this day. made life a little bit easier for us. And especially when we wanted to test this with our client that we did the demo for, you know, we had everything up there accessible just for that client only. So segmentation, if you haven't done it, does work. It's an excellent thing. It makes our life a little bit easier. So we were very happy that, yay, that was fantastic. The other thing that we talked about was analyzing the client. So like I told you before, by doing the feature tagging and doing the page tagging, you know, we started finding like, well, where are they going? Where are they clicking? How many times are they clicking this one thing? So this started building our questions of what are our clients doing in Portal? And so I'm not going to read to you what these questions are that we had in our minds, but really it's just started to provide us some more insight as to what do we need to do. The next thing that we talked about was analyzing once again, and the beginning of self-help. So once again, here were our page tags. So it's over here on the left, and then over on the right is really the feature tags. And this shows you, if you haven't done this already, how long people are in there, how many people are in there, what is that visit like? Which all leads to this, building our guides. So, you know, guides, some people feel that guides are just like the walkthroughs. So our guides we're looking into doing are making announcements, doing surveys, you know, hey, this is going to be a system issue. We don't use our guides as training. We have a learning management system for that. Our guides are used as a resource, meaning that clients can come in, they get stuck, they want to know how to do a function. They're in that situation, they can go to our Datable resource to get that information. So this helps new clients out. This will help experienced people out because sometimes you do get stuck and you have to get back on the floor really quick. Okay, so the other thing is reports. Favorite thing of ours. We like to look at reports. So what we're doing here is we're analyzing or seeing a dashboard report from a client, where they are as far as looking at certain areas of purchasing, of our activities, trades, scheduling. Are they using it? Where does it go up? Where does it go down? And then we can also take a look at the features down below as far as the pages that they're looking into. This will tell us, you know, how many visitors were there. What was that experience or that look like? And then finally, you know, once we look at all of that, if we digest it, we got to have a plan. So I told you guys about that 37 guides in 30 days. Part of it is having a plan. So this was our secret sauce to a plan. One was internal understanding. So we have a group in our company or in our organization, and there's about 10 people that are on our Pendo committee. So at first, everyone wanted to create guides. Everybody wanted to do the tagging. Everybody wanted to do everything. And so what we did was we kind of honed it in a little bit because we wanted to make sure that we wanted to make sure that we had the aces in places, making sure that we understood what it was, and then we can train other people on how to do it. So we made it a very small involvement at the beginning, but yet we kept communicating everything. So the communication piece was that we had bi-weekly meetings with our internal team, telling them where we are with the page tagging, telling them where we are with the guides, what are we going to be doing next. Also, we had weekly meetings with our customer success manager. So that was key as well, because he helped us and guided us through questions that we had. The next thing was practice. You know, we can learn this stuff, but practice, understand, and practice some more was a true help for us. Then we developed our guide. So we showed, we had to show what needs had to get done, and then assign who's doing what, meaning that we had a professional service engineer from Pendo to help us develop these guides. And then finally, execute, observe the traction, make improvements, and always keep building. So the first thing is you see the spreadsheet and you're like, wow, that's quite a spreadsheet that you had here. But actually, this was a spreadsheet that we used in order to keep ourselves organized. And you'll notice like the resource was who's going to develop this guide online. So yes, we did heavily weigh with Pendo helping us, but we also got involved and to help develop some of the guides as well. We kept everything to a due date. So we knew like, okay, we only had the certain amount of time. When did it need to be done by? So that's why we had this here. And then we storyboard stuff. When you're doing a guide, I recommend doing the storyboard. It's a script. Test it out, try it out. The one thing that we found was that we didn't have to keep going back again and again, trying to develop a guide, developing that script, getting how the guide would look, making sure that people looked at it before we even published it. And then once we executed. So understanding your audience and having fun. So I'm pleased to present, this is Pendy. So we have our mascot for our Dateable resource. Who is Pendy? Pendy is your guide through Pendo or our Dateable resource. He lives over here with the little question mark, and that's supposed to be a beaker, not a genie bottle, but it looks like a genie bottle to me. But what he will do is he walks you through the step-by-steps, and he'll also be there just to give you some encouragement. So that's Pendy. The other thing was it's all in the name. So we have a learning management system called Dateable Lab. And what we thought was, let's keep the Dateable theme active. So we decided to call our resource center Dateable Resources. And then the guides are really virtual guides because they are virtual walkthroughs. And so with that, we have a list of the subjects that our guides fall under. So that's where we came up with that little guy over there. And then throughout the thing, we're going to be building this Dateable resource where we'll have a communication section, a new release section, a survey section. So we're building this as we keep going. The next thing that we had was that challenge that I told you before, where we had to have two areas, to-dos and activities. How is it going to execute and give us one area? So with the help of our service engineer, and he was amazing, he provided some coding for us. So what the client does is they just click on count templates, and then within count templates, you can click on one of these guides and it will open up. You don't even have to go to do or activity. It'll just take you right to that activity by just selecting one of the guides. So I'm sure right now you guys are like, well, let's see it in action. So glad that you asked that. So here we are, and we are now going to see everything in action. And so there's Pendy, and he's done. So that's how we did one of our guides, just to make it easy. Once again, nothing that the client has to go through any other area. And so the other important piece is working as a team. So, without a great team, you could be out of sync. So Jim Dwyer, he's our customer success manager. He has been our sounding board. So with Jim, he helped us tremendously with helping out, steering us to how we should have our guides work, steering us to reporting, steering us to where we are in our progress. So if you don't have a customer success manager, or if you do, use them. We still meet with him. He still gives us advice, and he's been truly amazing help. John Ricks, he was our professional service engineer, another guy who spent countless hours with us and helping us build those guides and getting us to the date. We actually beat the date of when these were due. So that was thanks to him and all of his help and his time doing that. Tim McNamara, who works for our company, I call him the Pendo magician. He and John work together closely on getting the guides up and running. Tim is managing Pendo right now for us, so he does all the behind the scene magic. Glenn Fuller, who also works for our company, He's our report extraordinaire. He will take the Pendo reports, bend them, shape them, make them into these great reports for people to read. But with everyone together, we work as a team. So shout out to Pendo themselves and shout out to our team. And then execute and pray, as I said. So how did it all go? Well, we did a successful demo. It was a little hairy at the beginning, but then once people saw everything, they loved it. They are now Pendy, the guy that you saw at the beginning, who goes up and down. That seems to be the one thing people want to be interested in looking at. I guess it's just the introduction piece of it, but they are using those guide connects that I showed you, where they're leaping into different areas and utilizing the guides themselves. And so tomorrow is our big day where we are now going to go public to all of our clients and using our guides. And that's it.
Awesome. That was an amazing presentation. I think my favorite thing is execute and pray. That really made me laugh out loud. So if you have any questions for Sherry, please put them in the chat or feel free to come on, unmute yourself to ask your question. I think the one question that I had is when you were storyboarding, who did you involve with that?
So when we storyboard, we actually involved the subject matter expert who knows about the system or about that area. And what we did was we sat with them and we said, okay, so we have to come up with the steps. And we already had a quick reference guide, but what we wanted to make sure was, were we clicking in the right areas to get that client go to where they needed to go? So what we would do is we would put it into a PowerPoint. We reviewed it as a PowerPoint, and then we built it from that point. So they saw it as a dry run, and then they saw it live. So actually we had 2 reviews to go on before we published a guide.
Nice. All right. Any other questions for Sherry? You're getting a lot of great shout outs in the comments, so I hope that you're seeing them.
Well, thank you, everyone. Okay.
Awesome. So we'll move on to Kaylee's presentation from StrongMind. So thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. What I'm going to talk about, we also did under a time crunch, but it was nothing like Sherry's. So that is wild. Good for you guys. I cannot imagine. One sec, let me get the presenter window that we want in the right place, and then I'll share my screen with y'all. Like Erin said, my name is Kaylee Nassif. I am product owner at StrongMind. So we're an educational services company. I'll do a little quick intro in a second. But the guide that I actually made when I was learning community manager. So any folks that are on the customer success team, if there are any other community managers, put yourself in the chat. Love to hear from y'all as well. Because I think there's some really awesome stuff that you can do in Pendo, which is really, really great. All right, let me get the audience window and then we will share. Perfect. All right, I'll make this full screen and get into it. Can you guys see that okay? Perfect. So I'm going to be talking about how to chat your way to customer success. We used a Pendo guide at StrongMind in order to set up our chatbot. And I'll kind of walk you through why we did that and how we did that in a second. Like I said, I was going to talk a little bit about StrongMind. So StrongMind is a digital solutions company. We provide different resources for hybrid, remote, and online schools. We've got a variety of products, but today we're going to focus on the chat, which was in our learning management system. It's called our LMS. If you're familiar with like Blackboard or Canvas, very, very similar. So this is where students access their courses and they complete their coursework, where teachers do their grading, and where parents help keep track of student progress. So we have a lot of different user types with a lot of different needs. So what was the problem that we had? In late 2019, we started using Zendesk for our teacher and our administrator facing help center. So that meant our teachers and our administrators had access to our knowledge base, our learning community, and they could submit support tickets all through Zendesk. When it came to student and parent support, this often got funneled between teachers and admins. So that means when like a student had an issue, they would reach out to their teacher, sometimes to multiple of their teachers, and then the teacher would have to funnel that back to our customer success team. So as you can imagine, when you have a bunch of people playing telephone in order to solve a user issue, it isn't always solved as efficiently or as effectively as you would like. So for us, the real turning point came in August of 2020. We had this increase of users in our system, and we had just transitioned to a new login method. So when school started, typically in August, we had an influx of tickets. You'll see on the graph over here, the light blue are all our tickets that were in 2019. So August and September, that's like a couple hundred tickets. And then in 2020, our tickets spiked to being over 2,500 tickets. So you can see we got this huge influx of tickets, and that can be really hard to keep up with. So our challenge was, how do we figure out how to start deflecting tickets? Here comes Zendesk Chat. So we decided that we were going to offer our schools with the highest enrollments access to Zendesk Chat, and we wanted to do this very, very quickly, like in the span of a week. So that meant there was going to be little time for us to implement it, and we didn't have time to pull in a developer to help us. So when I was learning community manager, I used Pendo a whole lot. I did a bunch of different cool things. Also, your customer success team, Pendo is a great tool, especially for community managers. And because I'd used Pendo so much, I realized that we could probably use Pendo in order to set up our chat. And when I was thinking through, the best way that it seemed for us to be able to do this was to use a Pendo guide. So what we want to do first was start with a segment. We're only giving access to the chat for our schools that had the highest enrollments. So we needed to create a custom segment. We created a segment that was designated for those customers that use the chat. And I added all the account IDs for the schools. You can do a bunch of different things, like if there are specific visitor IDs you want to do. I've done things where you export a whole list and you delete the ones that maybe it shouldn't be applicable to, and then you use that CSV to funnel who your segment actually has and who a guide would be available to. We did this with account IDs because we wanted to grab all the users for those specific schools. And I also made sure we included those identified and anonymous users, just in case there's any reason that someone was in there anonymously, they were still going to see the chat, so that every single user for those schools would have access to it. So the next thing we did was try it out in staging. So you guys have probably seen, if you've made a guide before, you can put it in staging. You can have a staging area. I made one that was permanently in staging. This would allow us, with a guide, the chat is available for students the whole time they're in school. So from like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. it's there. That's also when I work. So it makes it easy by having one that's permanently in staging. We can play around with the configuration of that stage guide during school hours. And then once school hours are up, we can go in and actually apply changes to the published guide when there are users that would no longer have access to the chat for the day. It's also really, really nice having it in staging because our developers work in staging all of the time. So they're continually seeing the chat as they're doing work on our LMS, and we're making sure that they aren't making any changes. They aren't adding any features that would negatively affect the chat and mean that for some reason our users couldn't get access to it. Then we spent a bunch of time editing it. We spent a couple of days playing around with the configuration of the guide. What we selected was kind of like the best version was a custom code block, because specifically for Zendesk, when they when you get access to chat, they give you an HTML snippet. So I was able to add that in like the HTML portion of the custom code block. And then Zendesk has a really great knowledge base. So I was able to find some kind of custom JavaScript that people had created. And we were able to use that to make sure that the chat was only appearing when our customer success agents are online to answer the chat. That's kind of, you'll see where it says hide when true or hide when offline is true. I also spent a ton of time trying to figure out where to place the chat because the code block shows up as a little white block. And we didn't want that to get in the way of where our students are doing their coursework at all. So we played around with the size of it. You might have seen on that last slide, it's really, really skinny looking. That was the easiest way for me to move it around. And then also targeting it to an element in order to make sure that it popped up correctly and there wasn't gonna be this little white code block floating around when our students are trying to take their courses or do other work. then we decided to go live. After a couple of days of editing and testing, we were ready to go. I did test it out a little bit on the weekend since we have fewer users just to make sure it'd be good. But we're also able to schedule it to go live on a Monday morning. We have folks who schools in Michigan. I'm not up that early because I'm based in Arizona. So we were able to schedule the guide to go live. So no one had to be there to sit and physically turn it on. We're just ready to go the first day. Within the first month, we had 1.92 million views across 10.6K viewers. Our chat does follow you around as you move from page to page within the LMS. So that's part of the reason that our views are so high. But another really nice thing about Pendo is if you wanted to have the chat just in like a particular area or your guide, you could have it specific to one page. We decided to have it specific to really our entire LMS. So no matter where you went, you're going to continue to see that chat. Since last November, when we implemented it until today, or until yesterday, excuse me, we've had 50 million views. So it's been really, really great. Now you're going to see how effective it's been. So since we've implemented the chat, the average length of our chats are 11.1 minutes. And our customer satisfaction rate, our CSAT, is 87.8% specifically for the chat. Each of those chats counts as a ticket, or sometimes it can be multiple tickets that have been deflected. As you can see for like just the month of February, that's almost 1,000 tickets that we were able to deflect with the chat. But we're not just deflecting tickets, we're also able to reach this whole new section of users that we were never able to reach directly before. Zendesk allows you to create tickets directly from those chats. And now those tickets that we're creating from chats account for 20% of all the tickets that we receive. It means that we can be much more effective in our tickets as well. Our median full resolution time for tickets before November of 2020, when we implemented that chat, was 72.4 hours. And after implementing it, it's 1.4. So we've seen a lot of really great success with this for our customer success team. Any questions?
Wow, that is insane. How many views? I feel like that's a little nerve-wracking when you know it's going live, that it's going to be seen by that many people. So, but that's really awesome. How long did it take you to implement that?
I want to say it was a span of 3 or 4 days. It was not very long. It was really, we wanted to do something that we could do really quickly. And luckily we have access to the Zendesk suite. If you have any kind of integrations that you can use with Pendo, use them. It's so helpful. I love using Zendesk with Pendo because we also have like the knowledge base integration as well, which I worked in it. It was really, really great, which we liked a lot. Someone asked if it was for K-12 schools. It is. So we reach students all the way from K through 12. So students and their parents and their teachers and their admins, anyone who's in that LMS, they have access and they can chat.
Awesome. And there looks like there's another question. Is there a way to use Pendo to analyze the text interaction in chat?
I haven't played around with that, but when we were talking about conversions, I'm going to have to go in and see what we can do with that and kind of see how many clicks we're getting and those kind of things. We can do that in Zendesk. So we had to do a little bit of cross stuff, but I think now with conversions, we might be able to do that a little bit better.
Nice. And then with the chat, are a lot of students that are utilizing the chat to ask questions?
Yes, it's a lot. And it definitely helps with like much smaller things, like someone who's being like, I'm not sure where to log in, or how do I access my courses, or things like that. So a lot of times it ends up being smaller questions, but it also helps in the long run. Like I said, kind of deflect a lot of those.
Yeah, Megan has a very similar question that I have is, what grade typically submits the most tickets? Or uses the chat, I'm sorry.
That's a good question. I don't have those numbers right now, but I would definitely be curious to know that as well. I have my counterpart, Megan Bueller-Vera, is also on the call. So Megan, if you know, she's our director of our partner success team. So I'll put a little shout out, Megan, if you know, and you want to answer in the chat.
I do. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Meg, we can.
Great. So I would say it is primarily used by teachers and high school students. Obviously, teachers, when they're in work, doing their work, they can give us a quick chat. High school students who are having issues submitting assignments, where's this button, or I'm new here, can you help me? Younger kids don't necessarily submit as often, but we hear from their parents a lot, which is great. So when the parents are guiding a first grader through their course, if there's any moment of confusion, they have a question, they are able to chat in with us as well. So right now, majority, again, I don't have the numbers either, but just from supporting the families, a lot of teachers and high school kids. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You can tell why we are obsessed with Kaylee and the work that she's done for our partner success team.
Awesome. And then it looks like Allison asked a question. Did you have to hire more support reps, or did it even out and you got less emails or phone cases?
It ended up evening out. So once we started to get this influx of tickets, we started to hire more folks, and they've been able to use the chat as well as answering like tickets that are submitted through the help center and all of that. Let's see what else. Oh, I also saw Susan asked, do all of your Pendo users need to be set up as Zendesk users? They do not. That's what's really, really helpful. I don't know if you saw in the little GIF that I included, if I go back. Zendesk chat specifically, and I don't necessarily know about a bunch of the other chats that are available, but our chat, I can't make it replay. Oh, there we go. You'll see there, it has you enter your name and your email and your like specific information, and it saves it, which is really nice. And you can also kind of cross-reference. Obviously, people can lie about who they are, but you're able to cross-reference with Pendo as well, which is really, really helpful for us to make sure that people are saying who they are.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Well, that was an amazing presentation. So thank you so much for taking the time to present on that today.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just have a few little wrap-up slides here just to make sure that we let you know all the other fun things that are happening here at Pendo. So, all right. So you probably have received an email a couple of times so far to let you about Pandemonium. We're excited to be doing it in person. So we are making sure that we are following all protocols for safety, and we will be hosting this event all outside just to kind of have that extra layer. So it is in Raleigh. We're hosting it at the Red Hat Amphitheater. It's going to be more of like a festival feel. So we're basically going to try to make it feel as much of like a music festival as you can, with food trucks and a lot of great different stages of content. So we hope that you all can, and we will see you there. Another thing that I want to just kind of get a few hand raises. Has anyone ever come to you and say, hey, can we use Pendo for that? Or can we Pendo it? If you all can just use the reaction in the chat to just like give a thumbs up, or to let us know that people kind of come to you with that. So we're almost making Pendoed it like, let me just Google that for you, making it a verb. And we want to hear those really fun stories of unique ways that you're using Pendo. In the follow-up email, I'm going to be sending this link and a form for you to be able to fill out and give us kind of a quick snippet of what kind of fun things that you've done and how you've Pendoed it. So kind of, we'll look out for those stories, but it's exciting to see all those thumbs ups of everyone who people have come to you to ask if you can use Pendo for certain things. All right. Another thing is, and Kaylee mentioned this, if there's integrations that you want of Pendo, definitely utilize those. There's a lot of new different ways that you can utilize Pendo other than just analytics and guides. So there's mobile feedback, integrations, utilizing professional services like Sherry did. So if they kind of gave you any sort of ideas and you're interested in implementing those, utilize your customer success manager. Like Sherry said, if you're not using them, you definitely should. And that's what they're here for. So reach out to them. They are happy to help you with whatever you would need. Also, our Pendo user group. So if you enjoy coming to Pendoramas, we do have a few other localized events that you can join. Liz is on the line and she's hosting one in Dallas next Monday. And there's going to be one in San Francisco on the 31st, and then Pacific Northwest and New York City in September. These are all still virtual. So if any of these dates work for you, feel free to join, and you can join in on these virtual sessions. It's a nice way to get to chat with other Pendo users, share ideas, best practices, and really learn from each other. So definitely take advantage of that. You can see all of those events in the community of how you join the event today. And then lastly, the Pendo neighborhood is our ecosystem of all things community. So neighborhood events is where we host our Pendoramas that you're attending today. Pendo Academy is where you can get free training and any sort of certifications with Pendo. Pendo Friendos is still around, ways that you can be a Pendo champion. Discussion, we do utilize Zendesk discussion. So, and all the conversations that we're having here, you can chat further into our discussion. And then advisors, we're always looking for participants in our user research. So you can access all these elements of the Pendo neighborhood at community.pendo.io. And that's it. So we thank you so much for joining us. We always love doing these events virtually. Hopefully we'll be able to do them in person again someday. But thanks again for joining, and we will send out the recording of this session tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.